But whatever, David Coulthard is about to lose the lead of the British Grand Prix. Johnny Herbert will be a few laps away from it, but not if Jean Alesi, who can sense a second victory, having already won in Canada this year, that was 2 races ago, can do anything about it, and he will be trying. And when Jean Alesi tries, it is a sight to behold. So, Coulthard, number 1 coming in. Herbert number 2 on the track and on his car. And here is poor David Coulthard taking his speed limit penalty, whilst Johnny Herbert goes past him into the lead. Jean Alesi goes past him into second place. He has to go right to the end of the pit lane. There's the digital device on the right. You just saw the figure 10. Just imagine the frustration and irritation. 2, 1, go for it! And he does. But the die has been cast. Unless something happens to Herbert and Alesi, the race has been lost for the Williams team, for Damon Hill and for David Coulthard, who will have nevertheless underlined his superb form and ability in his 16th race of the year. This is the man to watch now. Alesi, who is second, and the gap has come down from 6 seconds to 4.8 seconds, and we're on lap 52 out of 61. This could still be a grandstand finish.
Yes, at the finish line it was 4.8 seconds from Herbert to Coulthard, but then another 1.6 seconds there back to Alesi, and so Alesi's actually lost a little bit of ground on that, and he's going to have to work very hard to try and get up on terms with Johnny Herbert. He's got to A, catch him up, and of course B, get by. He's only got 9 laps more now to do it, and it's my guess that if Johnny Herbert can keep neat, doesn't make any mistakes, and keeps his nose clean, he can win the British Grand Prix, that he will be totally bemused about. I'm sure of that, and that's not to discredit Johnny Herbert at all, but he's had a pretty tough time of it this year. Being number 2 to Michael Schumacher is not an easy berth for any driver, but Johnny has been really tremendous about it. He's been a very solid member of the team. He's accepted his lot and got on there and worked on his own setups with the car, accepting that Michael Schumacher will have the lion's share of the testing and of the engineering expertise. That's not to say Johnny's car is not in every way a match for that of Michael Schumacher, but certainly in terms of the psychology of it, Schumacher is very much has the upper hand at the Benetton team. But we should also give a mention to fellow British driver who we haven't seen much of at all, Mark Blundell, who is up to 4th place there, giving McLaren their best performance of the year so far at the moment with the Mercedes-Benz engine there. Rubens Barrichello is just 2.5 seconds. That's Mark Blundell in 4th place. He really is having a very good run of a weekend. He was showing good form in qualifying, closer to teammate Mika Hakkinen than he's ever been anywhere else. Really rising to the challenge and trying to do whatever he can, and I think he's done most of it already here this weekend, to cement his position in the McLaren team for the balance of the year, because he was originally only a temporary stand-in. Bit of rain there coming in on the camera. They're going to be watching their visors to see how many drops or have the drops build up. That's going to be the telltale warning sign. But Blundell wants to prove that he deserves to stay in that McLaren for the balance of the year. I think he's got a very good chance of doing it. But just behind him, Rubens Barrichello is only 2.5 seconds. In fact, he's taken a second off Blundell's lead in 4th place. Barrichello now only 1.5 seconds behind, and I think closing. So the battle is now at its best for the 4th place between Blundell and Barrichello.
Let's just review the situation on lap 54 out of 61. Johnny Herbert leads. This is his 71st Grand Prix. This man who has driven for Lotus, for Tyrrell, for Benetton before, then for the Ligier team, and now for Benetton again. And it looks as though he really is on his way, because there are 9 laps left, including the one, 8 laps left, including the one that he is on. He is 6.5 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi. If the rain holds off, he's going to be all right, because his tyres will be gripping. David Coulthard is down into 3rd position as a result of that penalty, and he's 19 seconds behind Alesi. It looks as though the best he and Williams can hope for is a 3rd place. Mark Blundell, as Jonathan has said, it's a magnificent drive by him in 4th place. because Mark never expected to be in Grand Prix racing this year, but he still had 2 finishes in the points this year, a 5th place and a 6th place, and it looks as though he's going 1 better already. But Rubens Barrichello is less than a second now behind the McLaren Mercedes as Johnny Herbert swings right to complete his 54th lap. And now let's see, it was 6.4 seconds between him and Lacey, and as Lacey goes across the line, it is 6.5 seconds. So Johnny has got things under control at the moment.
Well, Lacey there, 6.1 seconds behind Herbert that lap. Lacey having taken off just 0.4 of a second, but that's not enough. Lacey will not get to within 2 seconds of Johnny Herbert if he continues to close at that rate. But thoughts back with Rubens Barrichello there in 5th place. Barrichello was running in 5th place in last year's British Grand Prix in the very late stages with a McLaren ahead of him, except this time it wasn't Mark Blundell, it was Mika Häkkinen, and on the very last corner of the very last lap, Häkkinen, or rather Barrichello, tried to come up the inside of Häkkinen, and Häkkinen closed the door. They both spun, and Barrichello finished the race in 5th place, but in the pit lane he didn't realise the race had finished on that lap, and Häkkinen went on to struggle across with his wounded McLaren to take 4th place. So let's hope that we don't get that kind of result from This Is the Battle. Barrichello there, Blundell ahead, the McLaren-Jordan battle. The McLaren and Jordan have been vying for supremacy in what I term Division 2. We've got Division 1 of Benetton, Williams and Ferrari, Division 2 of Jordan and McLaren. Let's see who comes out on top. It's going to be close, and there's Michael Schumacher there.
Michael Schumacher, understandably looking pretty fed up and dejected, about to be interviewed by the German commentator. But Rubens Barrichello, look, this is it. This is the battle for 4th position, where with 5th place Rubens Barrichello, who's already had a 2nd place in Canada this year. And I said earlier on, his morale had increased as a result of getting pretty close to Eddie Irvine, who had consistently out-qualified and out-raced him. And now Rubens, the youngest driver in the race, the ex-kart champion, ex-GM Lotus champion, ex-British Formula 3 champion, and who did very well in Formula 3000 before joining the Jordan team in 1993, can see an opportunity to make it 4th place by getting past Mark Blundell. But McLaren want the points just as much as Jordan does. Meantime, race leader Johnny Herbert is on his 56th lap. He's still over 6 seconds ahead of Alesi's Ferrari. Down to Copse. Blundell, number 7. Rubens Barrichello, number 14, McLaren and Jordan. It is getting close, it's getting desperate for Mark Blundell. Barrichello right up behind him. This is the most difficult part of the course in terms of handling ability, and that's where the Jordan in the past this season has been better than McLaren in the handling area, but it doesn't seem to be now, because the gap between the two of them as they go down the hanger straight in 4th and 5th place remains the same, down to Stowe Corner. Right up on braking comes Rubens Barrichello, but then Mark Blundell gets the power on earlier and pulls away again. Into the Vale, the left-hander before club. And again, Barrichello closes up. Right up, but Mark Blundell knows he's there. He's got mirrors on either side of his windscreen. There they are, sticking out. And he knows Rubens Barrichello is there, and he knows how to keep him behind.
Now we're coming up to the bridge section, which is where Damon Hill had the go at Michael Schumacher through this right-hander, and it was into this next left. Hill came up the inside there, and Barrichello was a lot closer to Blundell than Hill was to Schumacher on the approach to that bridge corner. One of the problems with that overtaking opportunity as a potential place is that the very fast bridge corner is one in which it's very hard, in fact impossible, to get right up behind another car, because you lose your downforce because of the air coming off the car ahead. And interesting to compare the two characters of these two drivers. Blundell's been around for a long time. He's a tough, gritty driver. And Barrichello, I don't think, has got the level of aggression in him that actually Blundell will have in this kind of dueling situation. Barrichello is supremely gifted, he's very smooth, more of a Prost kind of style. And I think Barrichello is going to be better at catching Blundell up than actually forcing a way by. And I think we're going to see Blundell defend his position very robustly indeed in ahead.
And interestingly enough, Rubens Barrichello that we're riding with, and Johnny Herbert, who have is leading this race with Mark Blundell. Mark Blundell and Herbert have both won the Le Mans 24-hour race. But if you didn't see it earlier on, this is how the battle for leadership was resolved between Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill, when Damon Hill, in the opinion of a lot of people, tried something that was not possible. I'm sure Michael Schumacher's going to say that. Got inside the Benetton, made contact, put them both out of the race. So Schumacher, who was leading, Damon Hill, who was second in what was going to be a tremendous climax, were both out, and the race leader then became Johnny Herbert, that we're looking at now. He's on his 58th lap out of 61. He's increasing his lead over the Ferrari of Jean Alesi because it's up to 6.8 seconds. But when Hill and Schumacher went out and Herbert became third, it wasn't for very long, because David Coulthard fought his way superbly in the Williams Renault past the Benetton Renault that you are looking at now, only to get a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. In he went. Back into first place went Johnny Herbert. Up into second place went Jean Alesi. Down to third place, where he is now, went David Coulthard. And the order on lap 58 out of 61, with Johnny Herbert coming through shortly to complete his 58th lap and enter his 59th. Just 3 laps to go now for Johnny Herbert, with Alesi nearly 7 seconds behind him. Johnny looks as though he's going to get the job done for the first time in 71 Grand Prix. It hasn't taken him as long as he took Jean Alesi, but it was looking as though it was never going to happen with the dominance of Michael Schumacher in the Benetton team. That's Alesi in the background. You can see the track gap between the two of them. That's the time gap, 8.7 seconds. So Johnny has increased his lead by 2 seconds in 1 lap, as down the hanger straight comes Alesi. Herbert is on his way out of Stowe Corner into Club. Coulthard is third. Blundell is still fourth. A whisker ahead, of less than a car's length ahead of Barrichello fifth. And up to sixth place in the points again comes Frenchman Olivier Parnis in the Ligier. Some recompense for Martin Brundle having gone off much earlier in the race.
Well, what a magnificent British Grand Prix this has been. We saw Damon Hill have the perfect start, pole position, and then he made the perfect start away from the grid to lead, held up by this man, Jean Alesi, who held up the pursuing Michael Schumacher. And it was really very, very even indeed in terms of pace between Schumacher and Hill. But of course it all went wrong after that second pit stop for Damon Hill. He was out there within a second ahead to chasing Michael Schumacher until he made that apparently curious judgment to try and come up the inside into Priory. It just seemed to me like an apparent lapse of judgment, and I don't see any way that manoeuvre really could have been on. Certainly one would not have expected in any way Schumacher to have left the door open. So what a great shame there for Damon Hill, but a greater shame, I really think, for Michael Schumacher, because he'd really done everything right. He'd been held up. He'd been compromised to the extent of some 12 seconds in the early stages by being held up behind Alesi. Benetton had gone creatively once again for a different fuel stop regime, to stop just once, and that probably helped them in the early stages, in fact. And then Schumacher was about to defend Damon Hill in what would have been the best battle of 1995, until, of course, Hill hit him up the back and spinning them both off into the gravel trap. Whilst then Johnny Herbert, I really think is going to get the just reward for a very, very loyal year's work with the Benetton team. He's just got on quietly with the job and making the very best of his number 2 position at Benetton, and it's going to be tremendous and to see Johnny Herbert win the British Grand Prix, and a great surprise to a lot of people. But a frustrated man is going to be David Coulthard. He was frustrated in the start by being held up by Jean Alesi. Eventually, after the second pit stops, he got ahead of Jean Alesi and was then fighting with Johnny Herbert. But then, just as it was looking as if Coulthard